Hey there, I'm Gray Estrada, Chinese medicine lifestylist, face reader, podcaster, educator, and artist. This is a quick crash course in face reading. So what is face reading? It's one of the numerous classical branches of traditional Chinese medicine. The two branches that are known the best in the West are acupuncture and herbalism. Here are some key ideas. 1. Form and function relate. A tiger's teeth and stripes point to a carnivorous diet and camouflaging with its environment. A monkey's long limbs and a light body point to agility while moving through the trees. Because humans are a part of nature, the same rules apply for us. Variations in our facial features points to aptitudes, talents, personality traits, and aspects of our physical and mental health. 2. Facial color and appearance relate to health. When someone has jaundice, their skin and eyes turn yellow. When people don't get enough sleep, they get dark under the eyes. Chinese medicine stipulates the colors on the face are indicative of various organ functions and is considerably more complex and nuanced than what's understood in Western medicine. 3. We all instinctively face read. Look at these photos and tell me which person you think is the ex-Navy SEAL and martial arts expert. Have a guess yet? If you're like 95% of the people I show this to in my courses, then you pick this man, Jocko Willink, who is indeed an ex-Navy SEAL and black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The question is, why did you pick him? Because people's bone structure, muscle tone, coloring, wrinkles, and facial shapes all clue us into people's dispositions. Face reading is practical, and it's a skill that can be and should be developed. 4. Face reading is a form of profiling. The FBI and forensic scientists analyze handwriting, known as graphology, to assess and capture criminals because people's handwriting points to personality traits. Law enforcement and psychologists read body language to figure out if someone is lying or telling the truth. Face reading is simply another way to assess our personality, emotions, and experience. 5. Face reading is about pattern recognition. Chinese culture was excellent at documenting patterns observed in life and nature. These observations were recorded and passed down through hundreds of generations. Fast forward to modern times, and the Chinese have accumulated thousands of years of fascinating data relevant to the open-minded and modern human. It can't predict one's future, but does aim to identify rhythms and patterns in your personality that support your intrinsic nature and optimize the direction you take your life. 6. Face reading is relative, not absolute. It is not psychic fortune-telling. It's not about strict, definitive answers about people and their experiences. Acknowledging this keeps face reading humble and realistic. It's about assessing one's features in relation to priorly documented data and attempting to find relative patterns that could support the complexity of a person's aptitudes and experience. Face reading is indeed fallible, but that doesn't make it irrelevant. 7. Public persona and interpersonal nature. Chinese medicine relies heavily on yin-yang theory, which in a nutshell is the theory of polarities and opposition. Some examples are birth and death, men and women, night and day, hot and cold, expansion and contraction. This means the left and right sides of the body are said to carry their own polarity. In the context of face reading, the right side of someone's face relates to their public persona or extroverted nature, while the left side relates to their interpersonal nature or introverted nature. Terms and definitions: Jing, Qi, and Shen. These are known as the three treasures in Chinese medicine. It's said that if you guard these well, it ensures a life of health, longevity, and emotional resiliency. Jing relates to our genetic expression, bone structure, stature, how well we age, sexual vitality, and the talents we inherit. Qi relates to the energy we yield from the quality of our breathing, eating, feeling, thinking, and sleeping. Qi is not a mystical energy that allows telepathy or telekinesis. The closest and most modern definition of Qi is bioelectricity. Shen relates to the consciousness, anima, and personality of a person that can be seen, felt, and experienced, but not quantified. Mountains and rivers. This is a lens within face reading where we think of the face as a geography or landform. The areas with bony protrusions are mountains, and the areas containing moisture are seen as rivers. The mountains are the forehead, nose, cheekbones, jaw, and chin. The rivers are the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Assessing the mountains and rivers of a face points to a person's most ideal geography to live in. The 5 elements. Fire, earth, metal, water, and wood are seen as 5 phases or rhythms in the natural world that mankind has been dependent upon since the beginning. They are seen as non-self-aware personalities and/or the emotions of planet Earth. Because we're an extension of the natural world, these rhythms can be found in us in relation to our organs, emotions, activities, and facial features, amongst other things. Some people carry more of certain elements than others, but we all carry some of each. Enjoy the face reading. Welcome back, good people. Today on the face reading series, we have got Jennifer Lopez. So, if you guys are familiar with Jennifer Lopez, obviously, like a lot of celebrities, very successful, very prominent in the entertainment industry. She was just in the Super Bowl recently. So there's a couple key things that I want to go through when we're talking about Jennifer Lopez. There's some things that stand out. And so let's go with what we normally do, which is the Jing, Qi, and Shen layers of Jennifer Lopez. So when we look at her, okay, the first thing, when we look at her Jing, if you guys haven't noticed, Jennifer Lopez is aging incredibly well. So I don't know how old she is exactly. I know she's 50 or just above, and she's making 50 look good, to say the least. So when we see someone age incredibly well, we know that their Jing collectively, their genetic constitution, is very good. And we also know from researching her a little bit that she's also very proactive in her health. She does not drink caffeine. She's very clean with her diet. She drinks a ton of water. She's a kind of a health food freak. So in addition to having a good constitutional Jing, she takes care of herself. And that's one of the ways we can see in the lifestyle practices of Chinese medicine that we can really take care and nourish our Jing is to do just that. Eating food, the quality of the air, the food we eat, the liquids, the sustenance we take in, whether that's air, food, or water, or liquids, those things and how we think and how we feel are going to really predicate. Those things are how well we age is predicated on those things. So in any case, her Jing is very strong. She looks very good. She's got a good, strong bone structure. And you guys will notice that a lot of the people, the celebrities that I'm reading and the people I'm going through, a lot of these people have good Jing. And good Jing is often found in people who are performers and who have a very large presence. So it's not that just all actors have great Jing, but a lot of people, if you look in the entertainment industry, a lot of people with thick black hair, a lot of really solid bone structure, people that age very well. Tom Cruise is also one of these people. It's just one of the things that goes hand in hand with leaving a big mark in the world. Typically, if your Jing is pretty strong, you're able to leave a pretty sizable mark. Now, when we look at Jennifer Lopez, when we get to the Qi level, all right, when we look at the vitality of the organ systems, what's happening on her body on a day-to-day basis, this is where we see a little bit of discrepancy. So if Jennifer Lopez is watching this, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus by showing a picture of you without makeup on, but we have to look at a face without makeup. And this is one of the times where Jennifer Lopez in particular had quite a few photos over there saying she's not unrecognizable, but looks considerably different without makeup. So if you look at this picture, you can see that side by side, the difference that makeup makes, and you can really see what the makeup is hiding underneath. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like she's aging like everybody else, and that's not a slam, but it's just the reality is that makeup makes a difference in terms of getting your face red. And at least for me reading it, I can really see the difference between with makeup and without. But it's one of the reasons when I have people send me pictures for a face reading, I also say I need to see you without makeup so I can really see the texture and color of your face. So with other people that I've face read so far, they've mostly been men with the exception of Oprah, but Oprah actually looked pretty similar without makeup, so I didn't really include pictures of her. But when you can really see the difference, this is one of the key points that I want to talk about when we're looking at Jennifer Lopez. So one of the first things I see is this, what we would call a blood deficient. They call it blood shoe, which just means deficiency. Blood deficiency presentation in the face, which is where we get this sort of pale, sallow, dried out look. And I hope that's, I'm not trying to give her bad description. She's a very beautiful woman. I'm just saying that when we see blood deficiency, we start to see that dried out, pale look. And without makeup, Jennifer Lopez definitely has this. So there's a couple key things and what that means and how we get blood deficiency, but that's the primary one that I see first and foremost. And when we get to the lifestyle piece of this and the guidance I would give her, I'll talk about the blood deficiency and how that shows up, why it shows up, and all of those key points. But for now, I'm just going to kind of go through this. So we've talked about the Jing. Overall, Jing looks very good, and she's leaving a big mark in the world. She's doing pretty well, got good bone structure. Now, when we look at her Shen, all right, she's got something. There's a few different types of what they call peach luck. I've mentioned it in a couple videos. I believe with The Rock I mentioned it. Some people have it more than others, but peach luck, the peach is in reference to, in Chinese culture, peaches are considered a very lucky food. So when they talk about peach luck, it's the quality that comes out of a person's face, and there's 5 different kinds. So they have sparkling peach luck, they have supportive peach luck, they have seductive peach luck, They have direct peach luck and something called dreamy or dreaming peach luck. So all of them have there's different kinds of peach luck that can come out of the face. And when we look at Jennifer Lopez, the one that she carries is seductive peach luck. Now, when we look at seductive peach luck, seductive does not necessarily mean overtly sexual. Obviously, we hear the word seductive, we think of seducing, we think of sexuality. That's not to say that a person can't also embody those traits. But when we talk about seductive peach luck, this is a type of look that comes out of the face. It had a sort of a deep, watery knowing to a degree. Oprah doesn't have it. She had a watery wisdom to her, but it wasn't seductive peach luck the way Jennifer Lopez has. So there's something sort of sultry about the seductive peach luck look when it comes out of people's faces. So the thing we see with Jennifer Lopez is that people that have this look, it's sort of that, of course, it's a trained look to a degree, right? It's like the blue steel, like where Ben Stiller, right? Where he's furrowing and making the face. Sure, people in the modeling industry, sure, celebrities are going to be trained to, make certain looks, but her face definitely has this. It's in the spectrum of the seductive peach luck. And when we see this look is primarily about overcoming tragedy. These are people that have usually had a pretty rough road. And the seductive peach luck is a way where people sort of draw other people in through the telling of story, through relating to the tragedies they've been through the drama that they've experienced in life. My guess is that by looking at Jennifer Lopez, she's the type of person that can very well relay her trials and tribulations to a person. And as she does that, really, really bring those lessons to the front line and relay the wisdom that came from her experiences so other people don't make the same mistake. So when we see this, the seductive peach luck, that sort of powdery, mysterious look, that's definitely on the seductive peach luck spectrum. But it's one of the looks that comes out of the face and also seen as very lucky. But there's different kinds and they all kind of do something a little bit different. But that's seductive peach luck. Now, when we look at her prominent features, really interesting, when I look at her face, the first things that leap out to me, first and foremost, is the framing of her face and her jaw. So when I glance at her, her eyes don't necessarily leap out to me. Her nose isn't particularly lucky. It's not particularly bold. It's a good-looking nose, but by Chinese, face reading standard, it's nothing to write home about. But she does have a full mouth. So the things that I notice are definitely the mouth, depending on the picture and the makeup she has on, right? That definitely accentuates and changes the features. But what I see, the thing that shows up right away, is the framing of her face. So I'm really drawn to the outer edge of her face, the jawline. Okay, so just the outer edge of her face, that angularity is pretty strong and pretty powerful. Now, like I said, she does have a pretty earthy mouth. So the full lips, that full mouth is definitely relates to the earth element, which we'll get into more. Now, her eyes, very pretty eyes. They definitely stand out, but they're not as prominent as the framing of her face. That's the thing that stands out the most to me. Now, when we look at Jennifer Lopez's face, one of the key things that I noticed right away were pretty sizable cheekbones. So when people have these prominent cheekbones, okay, now this can change depending on how much weight a person is carrying. If they're very heavy or very thin, these bones become more prominent. And yes, as you lose weight, your elemental breakdown does change. And so, the amount of weight that we carry definitely changes face reading dynamics, absolutely, without question. So when we look at her, though, okay, she's very fit, in very good shape, but these strong cheekbones, okay, these are mountain features. And these high cheekbones, okay, that these prominent cheekbones that are definitely noticeable when we look at her, these are people that, for lack of a better term, are bossy. And that doesn't mean that she's necessarily bitchy about it. What that means is that she needs to be her own boss. People with these large cheekbones need to be carving their own path. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to make a ton of money. There's other features for that on the face. But what it means is they need to be in charge. They need to be making their own schedule. They need to have a certain amount of autonomy in what they're doing. And the bigger and more prominent these are, the more that dynamic is relevant. Now, these big cheekbones with, other features, really thick eyebrows, a really pointy chin. These can actually be people that are overly aggressive or encroach. They overstep boundaries. She doesn't have that face, but she has those strong cheekbones, which is indicative of her needing to call the shots. The other thing that's really interesting is when I look at her hair, she has the classic hairline for what they call the mother's influence. So if we look at her hairline, it's that nice rounded sort of dome just that perfectly round top forehead hairline, that is what they call the mother's influence hairline. So this means a couple different things. What we're looking at, according to the theory and the pattern recognition that face reading was so good at, is that they noticed that people had the very rounded hairline like that were heavily influenced by their mother. And that doesn't necessarily connotate anything good or bad. It doesn't mean that the mother's influence was good or bad. It's the hairline is, in a sense, sort of neutral. But what it means is the mother's influence on the person was likely very strong. Now, you could argue absolutely, right? Like the mother's genes are just stronger. And that's definitely falls in suit with what the theory says. Yes, exactly. Mother's influence, maybe at a genetic level, is even stronger. But Chinese medicine also says that when they have this, that the mother's influence is going to be pretty sizable with that person. And so that there's a few different things to look at there. With the mother's influence being very strong, I would say to Jennifer Lopez, assess your relationship with your mother. Was that influence collectively, was it a net positive or a net negative? And if you can identify that, that would give her a direction to go in terms of what to unwind in her life or what to nurture and foster more. So we always have to kind of, navigate that with our folks. Was it a good influence or a bad influence? We all have programming that we come into our life with regarding our parents, and we get some good programming and some bad, and those numbers are different and relative to the person. But the basic idea is identify, was the influence positive? And if so, nurture those things. And if they were negative, start deprogramming and getting rid of the programming that does not work. So that's one of the things that hairline means, is that if you have that, you really need to assess at a karmic level, energetic and physical level, assess what your relationship to your mother was like, because whether you know it or not, that influence is pretty sizably strong. So with Jennifer Lopez, we definitely see this strong mother's influence hairline. Now, if we look at Jennifer Lopez's, her interpersonal nature and the public persona, right, which is where we mirror the right side twice, so 2 rights together and 2 lefts together. I do this with every person I face read. So we notice something pretty interesting right out of the gates, which is highly symmetrical. Okay, so Oprah was also highly symmetrical in the last video I did. When we look at Jennifer Lopez, the picture on the left is her public persona face. The picture on the right is her interpersonal face. Now, again, you guys, I wish I could find pictures of these celebrities and these well-known people where they're not making a face of any kind, where it's completely neutral. Because when someone's making an expression, it's going to give a certain look while I read their face. But that said, we can look at the bone structure and look at her face. And the thing I always say to people is look at the public persona, look at the image on the left, and then look at the image on the right, which is her interpersonal nature. And if you were just to meet these two people, as if they were separate people, meet them in a crowd, what is your instinctual response? And this is the art of face reading. Okay, just in the same way, if we paint a picture of something, we're all going to see it a little bit differently. It's all going to make us think about things a little bit different. And this is the relationship we see between life force, life, and art. Very similar. So how you see it matters. How I see it matters. It's, face reading is definitely an intuitive process, and it's going to be relatively different depending on the person you're reading and who is reading the face. So that's the conundrum with all of this stuff, is there's a few different ways to the top of the mountain, and most of them are not wrong. So when we look at her face, her public persona side is actually softer. It's the one that looks more yin. It looks a little more approachable. Her interpersonal is actually a little more yang. It's a little wider in the features. The cheekbones actually look a little more prominent. And by definition, she would look a little more aggressive and go-getter in the interpersonal spectrum. So what this means is it's not necessarily unlucky, but usually face reading will say it's a little more lucky to have your interpersonal side look a little softer, because that means day-to-day, person-to-person, friend-to-friend, those things, dynamics are going to be a little bit easier. And when we see Jennifer Lopez, it's just the opposite. Her public persona is actually more yin and more soft, which is, I would guess, right? All this stuff is technically, up for grabs. But what I would say is, in looking at her, my guess is that people, the way they see Jennifer Lopez, people that work with her, they would probably see her as soft, approachable, and relatively easygoing. And her interpersonal nature is probably tougher than you think. It's more yang, it's more masculine, it's a little more, like I said, a little more hard-edged. And that probably serves her incredibly well in business, to have a soft face for the external world, but when she gets down to it, she's probably no bullshit. She's down to business, and that's the read I get on her face from both sides. So her, interpersonal is more that direction. The public persona is a little softer. So again, this means interpersonal relationships with Jennifer Lopez might be a little bit more of a handful than what people see when they get into a relationship with her. I don't know what her marital status is or who she's with. I don't track all that stuff. But that's usually when we see a face, the interpersonal side's a little bit more dominant and aggressive. That means in a relationship, they're going to be usually a little bit more of a handful. But the face they see on the first date is going to be like, oh, this person's sweet and approachable. And then they get into the relationship and it's like, wow, you're actually considerably more of a handful than I thought you would be. So that'd be my guess, Jennifer Lopez, if you ever watch this, you tell me, leave a comment. You can verify or not verify that, but that would be my take from reading her facial features. Now, let's see, the next piece I want to look at is the 5-element breakdown. So every person is going to have some of the 5 elements: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. We all have some of the elements. Some of us have more allocation of the elements than others, and that's what makes us interesting. Some people are very heavily loaded on, 1 or 2 elements. Some people have an equal distribution of all 5, which is kind of rare. What I see in Jennifer Lopez's face is definitely metal and wood dominant. So the metal element, as I mentioned in the last video with Oprah, who has a pretty sizable amount of metal too, is the open spaces in the face. So when we see these big open and sometimes what appear almost to be flat areas. Okay, so if we think of metal, polished metal, right? It's a flat surface often. I mean, metal can be shaped into anything, but we want to think of like that big open shiny surfaces. And when we see Jennifer Lopez's face, she definitely has that. These big open expanses without a ton of wrinkles. She's aging well again, but open forehead, open cheeks, open jawline, open chin, just a lot of open space. And that negative space is attributed to the metal element. So she's got quite a bit there. The other piece is she's got a really strong jawline. And so where we see the wood energetics is in the cut or the strong, the heftiness of the jaw. So if you look at this picture, I mean, solid square jawline. It's very clean, very angular. And from the front, she's got a sizably square, solid looking face. And so with wood element, we're going to see the strong jaw. She's also got very strong eyebrows. So her eyebrows, I'm sure they're trimmed. I mean, she's in Hollywood, and in a couple pictures that I have of her, they look like they've changed shape. So depending on what she's doing, it's really hard to read women's eyebrows a lot of times because they just do so much to them. But women, if you're watching and listening to this, trim, less is more. Like when we look at faces and when we look at someone's face, the world is reading you and you are projecting energy out from the face, and people are also projecting onto you by what they see. All subconscious and all intuitive, but thicker eyebrows, fuller eyebrows. Eyebrows that are a little less trimmed are a strong wood element feature, which means vigor, robustness, getting things done, and people will perceive you as more authoritative usually if the eyebrows are a little thicker. So women that are, when I work with clients who are sort of women that are in high profile positions or they're running, they're a manager, they're doing something, if they're open to it, I say, like, if you need to be in charge, like, leave the eyebrows a little fuller. You need to have that dominant wood element present and visual to the world. So with Jennifer Lopez, she's got some strong wood features, okay? Strong jaw, strong eyebrows. And we can really see this given her dance background. So people with strong wood element are going to usually be very heavily inclined towards very robust physical activity. Now, this can also be true for people, in the sexual spectrum. Wood element people often, not always, but often, will like the very, vigorous athletic sex too. So that strong jaw, the strong eyebrows, you'll definitely see that. And if you guys tracked Jennifer Lopez way back when she was a fly girl on In Living Color, I mean, she can move. And you obviously, if we've seen her in modern times, she can still move. She's an incredible dancer, but that's how she got her start, was being a dancer. And on Living Color, back in the day, I used to watch her and think, as a kid, I was like, damn, like, who is she? She can definitely move. And again, the wood element relates to ligaments, connective tissue, the fascia. So people that are athletic, coordinated, usually have pretty strong wood, and we definitely see this. So she's very predominant in metal and wood, but she does have a strong earth mouth. And an interesting note about her mouth is that her lower lip is fuller than the upper lip. Now, this points to a few different things, all right? But usually the one that I think is the most important to look at, not because it just gets views and numbers, is like sexuality and sex drive, because sexuality and creativity are very closely linked. And if a person has a fuller lower lip and a thinner upper lip, usually the sex drive is, I would say, higher and more direct in the way they deliver their sexual energy to the world. So if the upper lip is incredibly tight and thin with a really full lower lip, then we're looking at like what we would call, a nymphomaniac, someone who's just got a very high libido. So the tighter the lips, and especially when it's a tight upper lip and a full lower lip, I'm sure all the guys right now are like taking notes, like, oh, I need to know this, but this is true. This is like the tight upper lip, the full lower lip. We're definitely looking at that higher sex drive and need to move sexual energy and creative energy. So Jennifer Lopez doesn't have a super tight upper lip, but her lower lip is definitely on the fuller side. Interesting note about the mouth too is when people have this, they have really like a small upper lip, and the more the lip rolls open like this, and you can see the more moisture inside the mouth when the lip has that, like Bubba Gump in Forrest Gump. When the lip does that and it rolls open like that, the more pronounced that is, the more hedonistic the tendencies for the person. So a person with that really thin upper lip and a really protruding lower lip, hedonistic tendencies, usually very interested in sexual activity. They need to move their bodies, they need to have athletic sex. There's definitely some components there. So her mouth does not scream that, but she's definitely got elements of it. So outside of moving sexual energy, in a collectively good way, the other ways we can move sexual energy is through creativity. So, having outlets for dance, for poetry, for writing, for singing. So Jennifer Lopez has these outlets, lucky her, because she's an artist at her core. So these are just some of the traits that I'm seeing though when I'm looking at her predominant elemental features. Now, when we look at the mountains and rivers of her face, now, like I said, the most prominent mountain on the face is the nose, right? This is the biggest mountain on the face. Her mountain is not particularly large. And when you look at a picture of her, her nose gets a little lost in the other features. The framing of her face, those mysterious eyes, and a pretty full mouth. Those things are more on the front line, but again, the framing is what jumps out. So with a moderate nose, okay, what we're looking at here, and she has good cheekbones and a strong jaw for sure, so she's got some prominent mountains here, but because this nose is not as dominant as some other noses, what this means is that Jennifer Lopez would live in places where she wouldn't need a large prominent mountain, like say a place like Mount Shasta, where it's like that's the predominant mountain. Some people's faces, mine, I have a more sizable nose. Places where there's one big mountain would be good for people like me. For Jennifer Lopez, that's not really what she needs as much. She's got those big, wide open spaces. And so if we look at her face like a topography, her face sort of points to open meadows, lower elevation, small lakes. She has a big mouth and her ears are pretty decently sized, but her eyes are not huge, not small. But the feeling I get, the features, right, the landforms that leap out are those flatter, more open surfaces, and what that would translate is to open meadows, rolling hills, without a ton of elevation. She doesn't need, the high single mountain. So interestingly, sort of the, Los Angeles, the Southern California area, given the amount of hills and whatnot, that's probably a little dry for her. She has enough water features and a big enough mouth that I would say, a place with maybe cooler water. Southern California is pretty warm. But in any case, what she might experience, given the energetics of Los Angeles and the feng shui of that terrain, is that, LA might just tire her out, flat out. Jennifer Lopez, I would not surprise me at all, like a lot of people, right? This isn't like groundbreaking, but she probably needs to get out of LA and go elsewhere, somewhere quieter, somewhere a little more smooth and with a little more open space. So open spaces would be the primary thing that I think would be best for her. Definitely wide open spaces. Now, in terms of lifestyle guidance, okay, and longevity that I would give to Jennifer Lopez. So, for one, the metal and wood activities, all right? So, having metal and wood activities prominent in her life are fundamentally because those are her inherent dominant elements. So, with metal, all right, things of beauty. So, feng shui, interestingly, is actually a metal pursuit. So, it's about beauty, it's about cleanliness, And when we look at artists, this is very prominent in a lot of artists. Artists are very prone to the metal element because it's visual, it's beautiful, and these things are definitely prominent in her life. So you can see these in her features. She has a lot of metal, and she is involved in the metal industry, okay, entertainment. Metal is also relates to technology and whatnot, but metal and beauty and crafting spaces and having that beauty be an undertone to life is very strongly metal. And she's got that. And the wood activities, right? The jawline, the physical activity. She needs to dance. She needs to move. I would say keep those things in place because she obviously has those features and she is engaging in them. And this is where we start to see the benefit of face reading. When people's facial features align with what they're actually doing for a living is awesome. That's auspicious. That's what we would call lucky. She's doing what she's naturally built for. And so we see this a lot of times with people who have made a lot of money. Their features align with the thing that they're supposed to be doing. And Jennifer Lopez has done that. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned that she was blood deficient. There's a few different ways this can happen. Okay, one is there's a saying in Chinese medicine, and it says when the blood is deficient, the mind has no residence. And so what that means is when our blood gets so depleted, the mind can't root. Now, this is a two-way street though. If we overthink, all right, we use our mind too much, the blood can actually burn up. It's almost like we burn up the currency inside the blood. And I think very commonly for a lot of actors and people in the entertainment industry, they're so busy. They are so on the go. There's so many meetings. There's so many people that they're trying to make happy and trying to please and trying to, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. It's a very busy life. And so by default, there's going to be some taxation in the mental spectrum. So that's one way it can happen, okay, is from an overactive mind and too much activity. It can also happen from long-term veganism and vegetarianism. Now, people that are vegan and vegetarian, I'm not taking shots at you guys. Please don't sit here and be like, hey, you're just totally full of shit. I'm just talking about Chinese medical theory. And for women in particular, women lose blood every month. And because of that, because they're losing blood, the Chinese were very adamant about eating blood-building foods. And given that Jennifer Lopez, is blood deficient by complexion when she doesn't have makeup on, there's a few things that I would suggest. One is, blood-building foods. So the top one of the top blood-building foods is goji berries, okay? They call it gojitsa in Chinese medicine. Goji berry will build Jing. So that means blood, sexual fluids. It increases sperm count in men, all of which is scientifically documented. So it's a blood-building Jing tonic of sorts. So goji would be the food that I would tell her to get on board with. Super loaded with antioxidants. It would totally fit into her lifestyle as it is. The other one is beet kvass. So it's a fermented beet beverage, but beet, right, that deep red color is incredibly good for the blood. So Chinese medicine has some basic principles. Like is good for like. Things that look like things are, good for those pieces of the body. And we actually see this. There's an entire course of study if you look at foods. So for one, kiwis, which look like testicles, people have said, it's actually, there's a correlation between what kiwis do for testicular health. When we look at, we cut a tomato open, and the 4 chambers that we see inside of a tomato are very much relate to the chambers of the heart. We see that walnuts look like a brain, and they're very good for our brain. So the basic idea with Chinese medicine is that the universe is fractal, right? It's a repeating pattern. That's why when people on psychedelics see repetitive patterns, and we see these sacred geometric things in psychedelic spaces, Chinese medicine is saying because the world is about fractals and repeating patterns. So if you see something that looks like something inside your body, or a color that looks like something inside your body, eat it for that. So some people will say it's overly simplistic, but it is a very tried and true method in Chinese medicine, and I've seen result with it for years, as have other practitioners. So that being said, beet kvass, that is a blood tonic. It looks like liquid blood. The beet is very good. It's high in betaine, very good for the liver, very blood cleansing. So I would say, beet kvass or just eating beets and getting them into our life. But beet kvass is a fermented beverage which supports the digestive system. And in Chinese medicine, the digestive system is the basis for how we produce our daily energy. Like the spleen and stomach are the 2 primary organs that facilitate growth, movement, and energy in our levels. In terms of how much energy we use, the spleen and stomach are really critical. And so with beet kvass, that's a fermented beverage. So I would tell her, drink that. It's going to help the probiotics are going to help the gut, which in turn help digestion, which helps chi and energy production. Rare beef, if she's open to it, grass-fed, pasture-raised. So women, when they're on their moon time or they are blood deficient, eat blood. Eat some flesh. Eat some blood is, like is good for like. So eat that. Egg yolk is another one. Okay, very viscous. Kind of oily in its consistency, rich in cholesterol and a little bit of saturated fat. So I would say, those yin foods that are going to replenish the blood and be good for the Jing to help support her blood would be the primary things. I would also encourage her to meditate. Now, I would have to talk to her a little bit more, but she's got a pretty open forehead, which means, and not too big, right? Like someone like me with a really broad forehead, I have trouble getting my mind to sit still for that long. So I do better with moving meditation. Her hairline and her forehead is not as broad, which means I think she would actually probably handle seated meditation relatively well. Now, if it didn't work for her because of that really active wood element, I would tell her, go do something more active. Walking meditation, where you tune into the sensory, proprioception of your feet while you move, that kind of thing. But basic meditation practice, something like transcendental meditation, where she repeats a mantra over and over again and lets her mind just sort of percolate. I think it'd be incredibly good for her and would support that blood deficiency that's inherently there. Now, the other piece is float tank. All right, I would tell, float tanks are great for everybody, you guys, but some people really soak it up more than others. Because she has, all right, so much wood. In the 5-element cycle, water nourishes, creates, fosters wood. So if you think of plant life, right, like what do we do to a tree? We water it. Because of that strong wood element, her spending time in the water element itself with total sensory deprivation would be an excellent thing to nourish that which she already is. It's like, her being in a float tank would basically be like the tree getting watered or the plant getting watered. So that would be a big one for her. And I think given the collective stress levels of her life and what she does, I think it would be an excellent way for her to mitigate some of the stressors that I'm seeing. And the primary one is just that, the blood deficiency. So interesting to note, you guys, also, with the predominance of the metal in her face, metal is about cleanliness. And so people with open spaces and good metal often have a clean diet. And if they have those facial features and they don't, they would be very well suited for a clean diet. Now, what does a clean diet mean? Clean diet means that the body runs efficiently relative to the person's elemental breakdown. Now, when I looked up her diet, like I said, she doesn't drink caffeine. She eats lean protein. She has low carbohydrate vegetables. She eats sweet potato, very low fat, but high quality fat. She gets saturated fats. She does eat meat, but she eats clean. Okay, she's not, I would say that a keto diet and a carnivore diet are definitely on the richer side, right? There's a lot of animal protein. She has a very excellent mix, and she keeps her meals simple, clean, and to the point. And I think that has served her very well, given the constitutional breakdown of her face. So that's my read on Jennifer Lopez, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up. And if you would like a reading, you can find me at omnihealthandlifestyle.com. Thanks a bunch.